Broadcasting from the Meredith Hall Studios out of Carson City, Nevada. You're listening to Covering the Field with Big Richard Martin, Gator Gates, and Joe the Answer Ellison.
From the historic YNOT Saloon in Carson City, Nevada, welcome to Covering the Field. I'm Joe Ellison, and with me today are my incredible colleagues, Big Richard Martin and Gator Gates. Guys, let's start with last week's good news from the National Football League.
Well, Joe, I think we have to start off with the good, the bad, and the ugly. So let's start off with the good, like you said. How about the Philadelphia Eagles securing the number one seed, just as we predicted? And we had Jalen Hurts playing a great game, and they looked like New York Giants didn't want to play, and they rested their starter, rightly so.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't consider Philly being the one seed good news for me, but Damar Hamlin certainly was good news. Barely even in the news this week. He's been out of the hospital. He was sent back to Buffalo, and he seems to be like he's going to be back to normal. They don't say anything about him playing football anymore, but he's...
Well, at this point, I think they're doing a little bit of, respiratory therapy with him still, so he's nowhere at an athlete's type of condition as of yet, but he's actually good news that he's out of the ICU and he's out of the hospital. And what about he started a foundation for the Cincinnati hospital for research there to raise money for them. So I think that's great news, and it's a great job by Damar. I know he's very thankful for the care he got.
That's excellent news, and glad that he's doing that. Yeah.
So, getting back to the football, Philly was leading 16-0 at halftime and just pretty much coasted to that 6-point win and secured that number one seed. San Francisco won pretty easily. They won by 25.
Well, that's for our boy Tim here out here at the YNOT. He told us to pick San Francisco and cover the spread. Good job, Tim.
Yeah.
Tim. Woo!
Arizona got the big goose egg in the second half. They quit halfway through that game.
I think they had the goose egg probably the last three games. So they have not played well, and rightfully so, they fired the coach. But we'll talk about that later.
We will talk about that later. Minnesota was secured the number 3 seed with San Francisco's win. Tampa Bay, the 4. Going into that game, Dallas ended up with a 5. They looked up at that scoreboard and laid a big egg in the second half there.
They pulled Tom Terrific out and said there's no reason to play him and gave Tom his first losing season.
And Dallas basically didn't try in the second half from what I saw. New York Giants were stuck in the number 6 seed. And then there was that fight for the number 7 seed. Green Bay would have had it had they won at home against Detroit. But what happened there?
Well, I think Detroit showed they can play in the foul weather of Lambeau Field. They went out there and played in the cold. They said they're a dome team, can only win there. And I think they're a great offensive team, and they have to shore up their defense a little bit, which they have some great draft picks. And I think things look good for Detroit, and things don't look so good for Green Bay.
Yeah, that was crazy that Detroit played that well. I expected nothing from them. In fact, I bet Green Bay, knowing that Detroit had nothing to play for in that game. And sure enough, Detroit wins the game anyway and
outright.
Aaron Rodgers out of the playoffs.
Team. They look like the better team.
They were the better team.
Yeah.
And Jamal Williams got the Detroit rushing touchdown record from Barry Sanders.
That's right.
So great job by him, and things are looking good. They got 2 great running backs out there with Swift and Jamal Williams. And, the thing is, Joe, are you going to sink or swim? Does Detroit go for a quarterback?
I think they draft a quarterback, but you start Jared Goff next year because I think he played well enough to earn that job. But I think you could draft a quarterback for the future also.
Okay, so you're swimming with Jared Goff.
Unfortunately, he played way too well.
Okay, what about you, Gator?
Yeah, I think that since he's been at Detroit, or even before he was at Detroit, he's been a great quarterback. I wish he would have came to Denver, to be honest.
Oh, so now you want?
That was before Russell Wilson.
Okay.
So I thought he.
So I'll give you guys another sink or swim under this one. So I say this: who had more throwing touchdowns this year? Jared Goff, who you guys seem to love, or Geno Smith?
Geno Smith.
Oh, I got to go with Geno.
30 for Geno, 29 for Jared Goff. Very close, but Geno did get the edge. He was the number 4 rush throwing quarterback in the league this year. So he was number 4. So great job
and
by
he
that.
was rewarded with a spot in the Pro Bowl also. Geno Smith.
Oh, he deservedly so. Okay.
So that Detroit win opened things up for Seattle, who ended up winning in overtime and securing the number 7 seed. And that's it for the NFC. In the AFC, of course, we saw Kansas City beat the Raiders on Saturday.
Locked up the number 1 spot. But what about Buffalo winning 1 for number 3 and taking the kickoff to the house for number 3? I think that was just the highlight of the whole weekend.
Nathan Hines, 80-1 for that. Yeah.
Nakeem Hines?
Nakeem Hines, right. He was 80-1 on that to score that touchdown.
To score that first touchdown in that game?
Correct.
Oh, okay. If you did the prop bets.
That's amazing.
That would be
he had
great
to do it. He had to do it on a kickoff return to do it, but that counts.
What would be the odds if he did it twice?
Which he did do it twice.
He did do it twice. Yep.
Amazing. So that Buffalo win eliminated New England eventually. Cincinnati won the 3 seed with their win over Baltimore, which also makes it interesting where they're not going to reschedule that Cincinnati-Buffalo game. I don't know if I even want to talk about that right now.
Well, I mean,
that's so far
could you
down
imagine,
the road.
But you imagine if that's most of the people's Super Bowl of their fantasy, and if you had Burrow or you had Jared Allen, how would you pick if that was your final week for the fantasy Super Bowl? How would you even consider? I mean, I think you just have to split it at that point. There's no way to reconcile.
That's why I like our league. I like how our league is set up where we don't have that problem.
Well, we don't have the problem there, but we can't tell when someone gets a hit like DeMar took. Well, that would just happen to be
the last week of the
17.
NFL is always up in question. I mean, it's even hard to bet.
It was the second to last week, Gator, and it was
second to last week.
Okay. So that Baltimore loss to Cincy secured Baltimore into the number 6 seed. The team that ended up with the 5 seed, the LA Chargers, they already knew that Baltimore had lost. They had no reason to play anybody in that game against Denver, yet they played all their starters.
They did. And we'll talk about that in our You Got Host section.
Okay, fair enough. And for the 4 seed,
I agree.
We had a hell of a battle, Jacksonville and Tennessee. In Jacksonville ended up coming out on top, winning that division. The AFC South, they get the number 4 seed. Really good game.
Yes.
Took a defensive touchdown to make the difference in that one.
Right.
So that left the number 7 seed available, and with New England losing, that meant Miami needed to win in order to be the number 7 seed.
Right. And Joe Flacco was our boys Pittsburgh's only hope to get it done for the Steelers. And what does he do? Flacco lays an egg like he always does. We got one more chance to bet against Joe Flacco. You should have took the Dolphins, and you would have won.
We'll talk about a You Got Hosed segment in that Miami thing, too.
Exactly.
All right. And the Pittsburgh ended up 9-8. Tomlin, another winning season. But no playoffs.
By the skin of his teeth.
Yes. Arguably, what do you think about maybe it'd be better if Pittsburgh was in the playoffs instead of Miami, considering their quarterback in the playoffs?
I'm swimming with you, Joe. I like that idea.
But we got 2 hurt. We're going to have to talk about some injuries here pretty soon. But first, we maybe ought to get to the bad, or is this the ugly? The end of the regular season.
Let's go with
always comes some coaching news.
Well,
right?
the bad would be the Green Bay Packers losing at home. So I think we would give them an out, and maybe the way New England played bad on their kicking
their
team, special teams, which is not Belichick-like. So that's bad. But let's get to the ugly. It's Black Monday in the NFL. What does that mean, Joe?
That means coaches get fired.
Coaches get fired on Black Friday, and Levy Smith falls on the sword for the Houston Texans, and on a Hail Mary pass at the end of the game, going for 2 points, and cost them the first-round pick, which goes now to Cornelius' Chicago Bears.
Yay! Yeah, Levy never had a chance to win in Houston. It was a ridiculous hire from the beginning. Plus, when he was at Illinois his last season, he had a terrible year. How he ended up being a head coach in the NFL the following year, I have no idea, but Houston is eventually got to hire a real coach.
Right. Well, I mean, you're going to hire a real coach, and they're going to have the number 2 pick, which they will get one of the premier quarterbacks coming out of the draft.
Yeah, well, the number 1 pick is the Bears, but they already have a quarterback.
Didn't Lovie Smith coach for the Bears?
Yeah, he did.
He did.
One back to us.
Yes, he gave one back to Chicago
Good
for
point.
sure.
Great
He's
point.
available.
Great point.
Do you need a defensive coordinator? He's available.
So what are you going to do? A sink or swim with that number 1 pick, Chicago? Do you take a quarterback? I mean, you have Fields there. Justin Fields proves to be a good running book quarterback. You can get one of the premier quarterbacks. Or do you take the guy coming out of the draft from Chicago, from Georgia,
The defensive line.
Jalen Carter very much could be the new monster of the Midway. Or do you trade that pick and maybe get 2 picks, and you still probably can get Jalen Carter if somebody's looking for a quarterback?
I like that last option right there because you already have your quarterback, Justin Fields. I think you build around him.
You get some really good receivers out of the draft this year.
Well, when you look at that Trey Lance trade, what
San Francisco.
the 49ers gave up like 3 first-round picks. So
never played.
even if you only move like 2 or 3 spots, maybe you can get 3 first-round picks in exchange for that first pick. So
Maybe
I think
maybe.
I think the first pick is going to be a quarterback, and I think it's being traded.
Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud will look in the offseason and watch how they do their pro days and how they do the combine. We have to watch that stuff. But right now, it's just exciting to see what we have. Some hope for some of these teams next year with some of this great talent coming out of the NCAA.
Yeah. Well, Arizona fired Cliff Kingsbury and their general manager, Steve Keim.
Well, Steve Keim resigned, let's be honest, before he got fired. But he was actually on medical leave, and how he handled Kyler Murray situation, you can see where he has no future being there.
Yes.
But I'm going to give you guys a sink or swim on Kyler Murray since we're talking about Arizona.
Okay.
Not to get you off there, Joe. But,
that's right.
Okay, Kyler Murray. Who threw more touchdown passes, Kyler Murray or Tim's San Francisco 49er, who says he's the next Tom Brady, Brock Purdy? Who threw more touchdown passes? Kyler Murray?
I'm going to go with Kyler because he played a little more over the season.
Kyler Murray, well, he played actually 2 more games, started 2 more games than him.
Yeah.
But it was 14-13. Kyler Murray did throw more touchdowns, but considering 13 touchdowns in 9 games is a great for Mr. Irrelevant.
Yes. Well, the Niners got a bargain there, but that Arizona organization, they really don't know what they're doing. Cliff Kingsbury, there's another coach that was a losing coach in college, ends up being a head coach in the NFL, and you see what happens.
Well, he was supposed to go to USC, and he hosed him, didn't he? He hosed him and then took the other job.
All right. And Steve Keim wasn't much of a general manager either, but it starts at the top, and this organization is proven it doesn't know what it's doing, and I doubt they're going to do any better anytime soon.
Yeah, they're definitely have to build from the bottom up now. But they have their quarterback, and Kyler Murray is a good quarterback, so they have somebody, might be tempting for somebody.
Well, they need to pick a real coach, too, one of these days.
Right.
So, other teams looking for coaches, Carolina, Denver, and Indianapolis. The LA Rams, Sean McVay, kind of thinking about it. I don't know. He's already allowing some of his coaches to look for other jobs.
Right, they're open. They're not.
Doesn't that seem kind of crazy?
Well, sink or swim. Sean McVay's the youngest coach in the NFL. Gator.
Yeah. Swim.
He's swim. He is the youngest.
He was going into last year. I'm going to say swim then. Yes.
30 years old. Yes, 30 years old, and he's wants to retire. I mean, you can't retire. He got 1 Super Bowl. He sold the franchise off, did a Pete Carroll move, sold the franchise off, and now he doesn't want to rebuild it. He's 30 years old. Stay with the Rams.
So should Sean Payton hold off for that job?
I don't know.
No.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if Sean Payton would want to come into something like that. He's going to pick what he wants with his
those
quarterback.
are the questions. Yeah, with the 3 teams that Texas, Denver,
Indianapolis,
and Carolina. I think Denver would be the best fit, but I also think LA would be even a better fit than Denver.
Well, Denver, you're stuck with Russell Wilson.
And no draft picks.
But you don't have to. But if you take Texas, you have to rebuild. At least this way, you don't have to rebuild.
They have the defense going for him in Denver. They do have a good defense.
Right, and he's done this rebuild thing in Stanford.
Well, okay, that's college.
No, but it's still the same
organization, the way
blueprint.
Right,
the
exactly.
same blueprint.
That's how he runs his shows.
I don't know. I just think McVay ought to hurry up and just let everybody know, yes, I'm staying with the Rams and get this thing over with.
Right. I agree with that too, dude.
Okay. So, what are the biggest injury and player news for this week's playoff games? I know the Chargers played all their starters. There was a key injury there.
Yeah. Who we know, Williams, Chargers, a coach definitely is not a favorable of mine at this point in time. But
Mike
Williams gets hurt with a back injury, which he's always nicked up. Boza, their great defensive lineman, he got hurt and had to come out. And also they had a linebacker come out and get hurt. Kenneth Murray,
yeah, from Oklahoma.
Yeah, so 3 players gets nicked up because of that, but Mike Williams is the only one that hasn't practiced yet. The other 2 are back on the practice squad, so it looks like they're a go this week.
Why in the world would you play your starters when you know you got nothing to gain? But some teams do that.
Yeah, and we will talk about that in the
You Got Host segment.
Exactly.
So Miami, we got Tua Tagovailoa is out. Teddy Bridgewater, very questionable at the moment. Skylar Thompson could be the starter.
Well, I think they announced Skywalker Thompson is going to start, and he's going to start. I think that they might have Bridge under troubled waters. Teddy Bridgewater as a backup with this because he has a finger injury.
Okay, Lamar Jackson, no practice. That's like 18 practices in a row. Doesn't look good for that. Completely out. Tyler Huntley did practice.
Well, he needs it because he's thrown 3 interceptions and 2 touchdowns since he's been in there, so he definitely needs the practice and needs to get something going. The spread has went from 6.5 to 9.5 already, just when they said that Lamar Jackson is officially out.
Okay, and if Huntley can't go, Anthony Brown, who played last week, played fairly decent, I guess you might say. I watched that game, and he would be the starter.
Tough game going into Cincinnati. I think that's a real tall task to take with a third-string quarterback.
Well, we're going to start talking about how we're going to bet that game. First, we're going to take one last look at the regular season betting trends. We told you to lean towards betting on the underdogs and under this year, as every year it seems like it is. As it turns out, 151 underdogs, 119 favorites cover the spread. And amazingly, 151 games went under and 119 went over the total. I don't know what the odds are of that happening, but it did.
The odds are you should be taking the under.
Yeah.
So
that's 56%.
Right.
So if you bet every under and every underdog straight, you would have beat that 55% threshold needed to make money.
Absolutely.
Yes. So last week, 9 games went under, in fact, and 6 went over. Now, as far as the playoff teams are concerned, against the spread, Cincinnati went 13-3. New York was 13-4. LA 11-5-1. San Francisco went 11-6. On the other end of the spectrum, Tampa Bay was 5-12, and Kansas City went 6-11. Yet they still made the playoffs. So, looking forward to Wild Card Weekend. In the last 8 years, home teams are only 17-15 record-wise. Tells you that the road teams have a shot.
Absolutely do.
And in the last 18 games, underdogs are 12-6 against the spread. Leaning underdogs.
Okay.
Since 2010, wildcard games are going under at a rate of 65%. Pretty solid. What do you know? Underdogs and under in wildcard weekend also.
That's the trend. That's the analytics, Joe.
There you go. Thanks again to Butch the Rain Man Roberts for those statistics. So having heard all that, Big Rich, what are your point spread selections for Super Wildcard Weekend?
Well, last week, 3-3, so another, I think the hardest week to handicap is probably maybe the last week and the first week, or probably the 2 weeks. We don't really know what you got, and then
we don't know who's playing.
We don't know who's playing and who's sitting.
Teams that don't even need to win, they try to win.
Right. So let's start off with Tim over here. He's back over there. His 49ers, they're dropping 10 to Seattle. I think that's a solid bet. I mean, they covered the 10-point spread last week. I don't see him have it was 14-point spread last week. I see him covering the 10-point spread this week. I'm taking the 49ers. I'm not drinking the Geno Smith Kool-Aid. Take the Niners. Take the home team. I know they say the analytics are against it, but I like the Niners.
All right. What else do you like?
Okay, I'm going to take the Jags +2. So I'm going to take the home dog on that team. I think that the Chargers definitely are not playing the best football right now coming into it. Playing their starters was stupid the way they did it. Trevor Lawrence is a big step up for him. If he can get a win here, get a playoff win, he makes the next step towards his career to making himself one of these elite quarterbacks.
Okay, that's 2.
That's 2. And I love the Giants against Minnesota. It's going to be a close game. I know that. The Giants will play them tough. They did rest their starters. Minnesota is playing close games every week or they're getting blown out.
Right.
I like the Giants having rested last week, and being ready for this week.
Mm-hmm. So that's 3.
That's 3. And I'm going to go, how can you go against the Bills? I mean, Skylar Thompson is definitely out of his league against this. Josh Allen has thrown 14 touchdowns and 1 interception in his playoff career. Buffalo rolls for number 3. You got to take the Bills. Drop the 13.5.
Okay.
It was 9.5 before they ruled out Tua. Just let you know it's at 13 now.
All right. So what have I got here? I got San Francisco, Jacksonville, and Buffalo, and
the Giants.
And the Giants.
G-Men.
Okay.
And then I'm going to take Cincinnati at home. I know they're dropping a lot of points now. I went from 6.5 to 9.5. Isn't that right, Gator?
That's what I have.
So I like Cincinnati, Joe Burrow. I like Cincinnati to roll it all the way through. Anyway, I'm riding with the Bengals. They're on their repeat to the Super Bowl and get it done path. So I like Cincinnati. And then I'm going to take your Cowboys -3. I'm not impressed with the way Tampa Bay can stop the run or run the ball. So I think that if Dallas stays with running the ball, they shouldn't have any problems covering that 3 points.
That'll keep Prescott from throwing interceptions, definitely. Running the ball.
Yes.
Yeah. So, is that it?
That's wild card weekend.
All right. So, Gator, do you have anything to add to that?
Okay, well, I'll go through them fast. I agree with San Francisco getting -10. I think, again, they should get -14. Jacksonville at home being the dog. I love that. Miami and Buffalo. Buffalo should get the 13.5. Will they? That's my question. Is Josh Allen going to throw those red zone interceptions, or if he doesn't, sure he will. I mean, sure they'll cover that. Minnesota, I like them to win the game, but I don't know if they're going to win by 3, Joe.
That's pretty low. Are they going to win by 2 or 1?
Right. Well,
yeah.
Their record this year, they scored 427 points and they've given up 424 points.
Right.
So that's only a 3-point difference.
And considering their record, that's hard to believe.
So I do like the Giants with the points, but I think Minnesota wins the game.
Wow.
Cincinnati -9.5 seems kind of high, but Baltimore has nothing, Joe. If they don't have Lamar, they don't have nothing.
I agree.
So to me, I think Cincinnati wins. I push in the points though. And Monday, Dallas. Man, how can you look at on paper, how can you say Tampa Bay is going to win that game on paper? But what, Brady always finds a way the last 2 minutes, always. I'm still going to take Dallas just because last week had to leave a bad taste in their mouth. It had to. These guys are professionals.
It seems like when you play a bad week, you come back and play a good week afterwards. The good quarterbacks do. So I don't
trust Brady. And I don't trust Brady. If I put money down, you got a $100 bill, you're going to put it on Brady?
Well, he is
sure about that.
7-0 against Dallas in his career. Yeah. That's the one stat that scares the hell out of me, especially being a Cowboys fan. So, my picks, was that it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, well, my picks unfortunately went 1-3 last week. Very disappointing, but still, I went 40-22-1 the last 16 weeks. That's 65%.
There you go. That's what we need, right
can't
there.
Argue with that.
Right there.
Well, great minds think alike as far as my picks. This week I also like Jacksonville +2 at home versus the Chargers. The Jaguars won at LA 38-10 in week 3. They are definitely on a roll. Obviously they won't win 38-10 this time. It'll be a lot closer, but that was impressive. I'm taking the New York Giants +3 at Minnesota. First game was decided by a 61-yard field goal on the last play of the game.
Right.
That's right.
And that was only 3 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Giants are 6-1 on the road against the spread. So that's pretty solid. I'm also trying Cincinnati minus what you said, 9.5 now. I have 8.5 written on my sheet yesterday at home against Baltimore. It's those questions at quarterback for Baltimore. And since he is 5-1-1 against the spread at home. So And finally, if Tua had played at Buffalo, I'd like the over, but that was 32-29 the last time they met.
Right.
But now I'm leaning towards Buffalo minus the 13. So I'm going to be in total agreement with you guys.
Okay.
All right. And I'm staying away from the other two games.
Yeah.
It's the San Francisco game and the Dallas game I'm not touching right now. So, who's your Super Bowl pick? You got one?
Well, I'm going to have to go with the owner here. Alice says that she thinks it's going to be Minnesota and Buffalo, who are both 0-4 in the Super Bowl. So someone would have to eventually win the Super Bowl.
Eventually.
And then who's the guy that missed the field goal for the Buffalo? The 40.
Scott Norwood.
Scott Norwood, he can flip the coin. That would be a perfect Super Bowl. I think someone would have to win. That was what I'd have to say.
Right on, Big Richard.
What do you got there, Gator? You got a Super Bowl pick?
To win the Super Bowl, I think it's going to be an NFC team.
Oh, wow. That'd be an upset.
And I'd have to go with the best team out there, emphasize team. And I say San Francisco has the best team.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to take them.
I would say Philly might have the... So you have San Francisco beating... Who'd you say? San Francisco winning the Super Bowl or losing in the Super Bowl?
No, I got San Francisco winning the Super Bowl. Who's going to be there from the AFC?
Yeah.
You got 3 picks.
You have 3 picks. I think it's not going to be either one of those 3.
Okay.
I think they all have something. Kansas City's defense is not that great. Josh Allen in the red zone, if he can't get those in there, they're not going to get there. And Cincinnati, I think they have the best chance, but it's going to be somebody else.
So you're going to pick Jacksonville, the Chargers, Miami.
You picked the win.
Well, okay, Jacksonville. I'll take Jacksonville.
That's the only AFC team you picked. KC.
There you go. That would be.
Jacob thinks it's still the Steelers. He's staying with the Steelers, even though they're not in it. He's going to take the Steelers.
I take them too.
Keep picking. Well, I'm going to take Cincinnati to win. I think they're the best team. Dallas. Of course, I have to pick Dallas. I'm going to pick them to lose in the Super Bowl. They have a shot, but Cincinnati, I believe, is the best team. I'm not going to pick San Francisco.
Joe Burrow is definitely the most
confident
confident quarterback, that's for sure. So I like that.
He is a confident. You're right.
Looks
and
good.
that's always nice.
And they're really upset over this situation with the coin flips and the neutral field and all that. So I like the pissed off teams. So we need to move on to college football. How did that big championship game go last Monday? Big Rich,
what were you guys?
What were you thinking?
What were you guys thinking? Taking TCU? Man.
What the were you thinking? Stop!
Georgia stomped those desert lizard horn dogs. Horn
dogs? Close
the
enough.
horn dogs.
Horn frogs.
The desert lizards. I mean, I'm putting in right now for a petition to say that TCU cannot play in a bowl game for 2 years. After that,
stop it.
That game last week, I mean, it was just horrible, just heartbreaking to see.
Okay.
I mean,
so you guys think that this playoff that's going to happen here, this playoff system we have, is that going to stop those
it stopped
TCU?
TCU wouldn't have never made it in a 12 game. They would never.
Yeah,
I mean, they got by Michigan, but they never would get out of a 12. They're absolutely
we were turning the TV
outmanned.
off at the halftime. Okay, at halftime we were turning the TV off, not watching it. And we can't have that. We need games.
I think the playoff will take care of that.
They needed a month to prepare, like the Michigan game, that week to prepare. For Georgia, they were kind of beat up and emotionally done, whereas Georgia, they were on a mission and they had the experience of winning it the year before. I do believe TCU deserved to be in the game. I don't care if they lost 200-0.
Well, they just about did.
Yeah, they just about did.
They played one more quarter, it would have been.
No, Joe, they did deserve to be there. I don't want to take anything away from them there because they did play, and nobody gave them a chance. So I'm not saying that.
And they did get outgained by like 400 yards. Of course, Stetson Bennett, 25 years old, veteran, had won a championship.
I mean, he never got tackled the whole game. I mean, he was never on the ground the whole game. I mean, they were outmanned, outcoached, and outplayed at every factor of that game.
I did get the game half right, though. It did go over.
Just by Georgia alone covered the over.
So we got 50-50 on that. So any shots of a Georgia three-peat now?
We're going to have a different quarterback.
Different quarterback.
So I think things are changing. Well, you guys are going to sink or swim. Is Georgia now the new Alabama? Now they have the throne? Are you sinking or swimming? Georgia is now the king of college football.
They'll be tough to beat. I'd be curious to see who the quarterback is going to be. That's pretty, but after watching the biggest blowout in bowl history, it's going to be tough not to think they're not going to make the Final Four.
Alabama's got a high standard, too. You're asking a hard question.
But see,
there.
If Alabama would have got to the playoffs, would that game would have been better? If it was been Alabama, absolutely would have been better versus Alabama. TCU.
Yeah, but they didn't deserve to be there.
But the playoff situation will take care of that.
I still think TCU could have beat Alabama, personally, had they met, but that's just me. But who's going to be challenging Georgia? Who's coming back? Who's got some Heisman Trophy hopefuls?
Okay, well, the Heisman Trophy next year, Caleb Williams is 4-1 if you want to take him. Drake May is second at 10-1. And then we have Bo Nix, Jordan Travis, and Michael Penix from Washington are all at 12-1 odds.
Any of those teams got a shot, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
And what about Texas? They're getting Archie Manning coming. He is now 100-1 to win it. He is in Texas right now, getting his classes ready, getting ready to play football for the Longhorns. And it's going to be either him or Heward is going to be the starter next year. It's going to be a good battle for that, I think, to be QB1. Quinn Ewers had a great year, I thought, for Texas.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see who's ranked number 1 going into next year.
But I would say the best bet would be Marvin Harris Jr. He's at 50-1 for Ohio State.
Receiver.
And he's definitely probably one of the best receivers right now. I think he would be the number 1 receiver coming out of the draft if he could. But he'll come out next year. And Kyle McCord is now the new quarterback for Ohio State. And you can get him at 25-1 to win the Heisman.
All right. Well, that could be a pretty good bet. Right. So I should also congratulate South Dakota State, the Jackrabbits, who beat the perennial powerhouse North Dakota State Bison for the football championship
So
series
they probably
title.
would have gave a better game to Georgia than TCU. I would have taken the Jackrabbits over the...
You keep ripping TCU after that
game.
Incredible year. The second best team in the country, and you're just ripping them.
Well, I think Georgia ripped them.
So, Gator, what's the news this week from the National Hockey League?
Okay, Joe, well, the biggest thing was the announcement last Thursday of the All-Star game. They announced 8 players for each team. You got the Metro, the Atlantic, the Pacific, and the Central. But there are still going to be 12 other teams added, and they'll be voted on by the fans.
12 of the players? So there'll be 11 total on each team, and that's going to be February 3rd in Florida.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, correct, Joe.
The hockey hotbed, literally.
Yeah, right now it is. I agree.
Yeah. So which teams are hot and which teams are not right now in the NHL?
Okay, Joe. Well, right now Seattle is 6-0, Boston is 4-0. Buffalo 8-3, Philly is 6-1. They won last night.
Okay.
And Winnipeg is 5-1, Joe.
And Nashville was doing good too. I was kind of noticing.
Yes, they are doing good. Don't have that right in front of me.
Okay. Well, who is
5-2?
5-2. All right. And who is not hot?
Okay. Well, I have Montreal is 1-8. They seem to be on my list all the time. Now, the ones that are crazy is Pittsburgh and Colorado. They're both 1-6.
Cold streaks for the Avalanche.
And Arizona's 0-6. And here's another one, Carolina. Now, they just were on 11-0 streak. Now they're 0-4, Joe. So
Streaky
I just
team.
take them on there.
Well, okay. We'll pay attention to those teams. Your picks went 6-4 last week, putting you at 92-42 for the season. That's 69%.
Still good.
Still 69. What are your predictions for next week?
Okay, Joe. Well, tonight I have Colorado and Chicago. I have Colorado. Friday I have one game. I have New Jersey at Anaheim. New Jersey should win. Saturday I have 3 games. Islanders to beat Montreal. Seattle is going to be at Chicago. I think Seattle should still win. And Minnesota is going to be hosting Arizona, and I think Minnesota is going to win.
Okay.
Sunday, I have 2 games. Montreal is going to be at the Rangers. I'm going to take the Rangers. And Winnipeg is going to be hosting Arizona, and I'm going to take Winnipeg.
Okay.
Now, Monday, I have 3. I have Boston over Philly. And Philly's really high right now. They're on my high list. New Jersey over San Jose. That's in New Jersey.
Right.
And Pittsburgh on my cold list over Anaheim.
Okay. And that's it?
That's
Is that
it.
10?
That's 10.
That's 10 picks. We always pick 10.
Try to.
All right. So,
Big Gator.
yeah, let's try to get to that 70% threshold, right?
Oh, yeah.
Stop betting on Colorado.
Yeah.
So, Big Rich, what are there any stories from the National Basketball Association this week?
Well, the biggest story is Kevin Durant is out for 4 weeks with a knee injury.
Oh,
So
what a shame.
the Nets are still 9-1 without him, and the Pacers are 8-2 in the last 10 games, and Boston is still on top, and 76ers are 7-3. Out in the West, we got the Nuggets playing great. They're 8-2, just beat up on the Lakers. And like everybody else, Memphis is 8-2 with a 7-game winning streak. So John Morant's playing great out there. The Pelicans are surprising 6-4 without Zion Williams. Wow. So and then we can't stop. About the Pacific is still the Kings. They're still holding the throne. They're still in first place. They're 21-18. But the Warriors, right? That's your team right there, Cornelius.
Hey,
Yep.
Warriors.
So they get the Warriors. They get Steph Curry back, and what do? They lose. They're on a 6-game losing streak. The Suns, who are on a 6-game losing streak, with Devin Booker out, and what do? They go to the Warriors, who are so great at home. And Joe, what were you thinking about the Warriors? I'm telling you anyway. No,
they can't win on the road.
Yeah, well, they're
And they
3
can't
straight
win at
home.
home.
They had the best home record, and now they lost 3 in a row.
They just can't win anywhere.
But who's not is the Trailblazers are 2-8, Utah's 3-7, and San Antonio's 3-7, and the Rockets are skyrocketing to a 1-9 record. So stay off the Houston Rockets, but get on the Houston Cougars.
Okay. Well, what's going on in college basketball?
Well, first of all, Joe, I want to talk a little bit about college. Next year, we're getting 14th to the Big 12. So it's going to start in 2024. Just to piggyback a little bit with the NCAA football, BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, and UCF next year will go to the Big 12.
Big 12, yeah.
Okay, and then 2024, that's when UCLA and USC say bye-bye to the Pac-12. They go to the Big 10. And then 2025 is when we lose
Texas and Oklahoma. Goes to the SEC.
So that's it. But we're going to talk about the NCAA. We got a new top 25 team is now Houston.
They're at the top.
They're at the top. They're number 1. They had a close game last night against UCF. Southern Florida. And Kansas goes to 2. Purdue goes to 3. Alabama. You got to watch this kid, Brandon Murray. He's a true freshman, 19 years old. He's averaging 19 points a game. He's doing great. Watch him. He's worth it. And UCLA moves to 6, and Tennessee's 5.
Okay. Those are the teams to watch right now?
Those are the team to watch, and you got some good games this week. Purdue and Indiana, when they get their kid back, he's got a bum ankle. When he comes back in, they lost 2 home games in a row. They'll bounce it back. Keep Wisconsin on your radar.
All right. Well, Gator, we previewed that Tournament of Champions in golf last week. How did that finish up?
Okay, well, going into Sunday, Colin Morikawa was the leader, but John Rahm was 7 strokes back going into that round and didn't have any bogeys all weekend, Joe. But Morikawa bogeyed on the 14th, 15th, and 16th.
And just basically choked it off.
Pretty much, and really sad. I didn't get to see it, though. I wish I would have. But Rahm bogeyed the first hole, but had 9 birdies and 1 eagle to win by 4 shots over Tom Hogue.
He went by a couple shots. Shot 10 under on the last round. Morikawa 1 under. So good for John Rahm.
Now, when we talked about it last week, Joe, he was 7-1 when we told you to take John. But he went off at 12-5.
So people were on it.
Yeah, so hopefully he got it early if he did get it.
Okay. Well, tennis's first major, the Australian Open, set to begin Sunday. On the men's side, Rafael Nadal's the defending champion. Novak Djokovic is the big favorite, but he injured his leg last week. Still managed to win that tournament he played in. He's going to get booed a lot. He didn't play last year because he refused to get vaccinated. Ended up being deported. they're not going to like him a whole lot.
No, yeah, he will get booed.
That makes the tournament really wide open.
Well, especially with Carlos Alcaraz. He's out with the leg injury.
The U.S. Open champ, the teenage phenom, he is out.
Right, in November, he tore his admin muscle, and that kept him out of the ATP finals and the Davis Cup finals as well.
Right. So it's really wide open. Do you have a pick on the men's side?
Okay, well, if I'm going to take anybody, Joe, I guess I would take Taylor Fritz. USA just got done playing in Sydney. They just beat Italy in the finals. It was the best of 5.
The United Cup.
Yeah, United Cup, inaugural United Cup. And so Taylor Fritz was on that team, and so was Francis
Tiafoe, yeah.
Tiafoe. So I'm going to go take Taylor Fritz. He's at 30-1, and just coming off of that, I think he might have a good shot.
Okay.
For a long shot.
Tiafoe is 50-1. That's a pretty good long shot too.
Yeah, exactly, Joe.
Okay. On the women's side, defending champion Ashley Barty, she retired.
Yeah.
Naomi Osaka, she won't play. She's pregnant. 42-year-old Venus Williams is out with an injury. Never had a chance anyway. Serena Williams retired, but Iga Swiatek, she will play. She's the favorite.
Yeah, of course she is. She am well deserved. She should be the favorite.
She's going to be my pick. She's 9-5 right now.
Sure. So
it's pretty good odds.
So let's try to beat her, right, Joe? So if you're going to try to beat her, let's take Jessica
Pegula.
She was on the USA team, and she's at 16-1. I think that's a great price for her. Madison Keys, I don't know. That's a long shot. I don't know what she's at right now, but she was on that team as well. But I think that Jessica has a better shot at it than Madison does.
Pegula, the daughter of the owners of the Buffalo Bills.
Correct.
The Pegulas. So I'd like to see her win it. Absolutely. But I'm going to pick Swiatek. I'm not going to pick anybody on the men's side. There's no money in Djokovic, so maybe just watch to see how the tournament goes for a while.
Or you can always do matchups, Joe.
Right.
Always do matchups.
Yes, we can always wait till that last week and do matchups. Indeed. So we need to congratulate American skier Michaela Schifrin, won a giant slalom in Slovenia last Sunday, tied American Lindsey Vonn with a women's record 82 World Cup wins.
Yay.
She needs 4 more wins to tie the great Ingemar Stenmark for the most wins of all times.
Right.
That's going to be. She's going to end up with 100.
I would think so.
Yeah. In baseball news, shortstop Carlos Correa, he's staying with Minnesota after all.
Oh, really?
So he's the only one to get a clean bill of health from Minnesota. He can't get. He's the only one to come back.
Doesn't that figure?
He passed a physical. I think finally. Of course, he needed to pass a physical, but
wasn't the years were knocked down or something, right?
Yeah,
so
it's only 6 years and $200 million.
Yeah, I think that might have something to do with it.
Yeah, I think that was a much better move since he's already injury prone anyway.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Not such a risk.
Okay. Rafael Devers is staying with Boston, but Trevor Story is out 4 months with an elbow injury. Brandon Belt is moving from San Francisco to Toronto.
So Lady Gator ain't going like that.
No. So the teams that appear to have improved the most so far, Toronto, the LA Angels, Arizona, Texas, and Seattle.
Right.
Okay. We thank Ronnie McKinnon for that information.
Yeah, thank you, Rodney.
Good. So, it's that time where we talk about the things that happened where we thought we were going to have winners, but something went horribly wrong at the very end, and we ended up holding tickets that were losers. It's a segment we affectionately call You Got Hosed.
You got hosed.
So Gator, you got a You Got Hosed moment.
Yeah, Joe, my You Got Hosed is the Dallas Cowboys. I say anybody that bought a ticket from the Cowboys got hosed. I'm watching all these networks and they're blaming the crap out of Dak.
Yeah.
It wasn't just Dak. And when you look up and down that bench and everybody's got their head down low, the coaches are not even talking to them, or not even trying to get them. I don't know. I think as soon as you got that ticket in your hand, you got hosed, Joe.
You got hosed.
I had one of those.
You got hosed,
That was one of my
Joe.
losing picks.
Sorry, Joe.
Halfway through the game, they quit.
It was just terrible.
It was terrible. So
You got hosed story?
Rob, yeah.
Well, why
Big
not?
Rich.
Can we get a Let's Go Brandon?
Let's go!
Can we get a Let's Go Brandon?
Let's go, Brandon!
Let's go,
Well, Brandon Staley, the coach of the Chargers.
Wrong Brandon.
Wrong Brandon.
He played his starters in the second half. As you know, we had the Broncos minus 3.5. All the
Second half.
in the second half bet. We had it. We thought for sure we had it. Let's go. Brandon Staley plays his starters, gets his players hurt, and we lose by half a point, Joe.
Yeah, we were both there at the halftime bet.
We
There's
were.
no way they can be playing all their starters in the second half.
Oh, you got host.
We got host.
Yeah, we got host. All right,
Okay,
Joe.
Joe?
Oh, well, my host story happened in the Miami-New York Jet game. Miami kicked a field goal with 18 seconds left, take a 9-6 lead. Spreads Miami minus 3.5. There's no way Miami can cover that spread now, right? Well,
They do a lateral?
after 2 incompletions by Jets quarterback Joe Flacco, it's time for the lateral play. You're right, Big Rich. Sure enough, the Jets lateral the ball into their own end zone and recover it for a safety.
Pitchy, woo.
The score on the TV doesn't change, but 10 minutes later came the final score.
Right.
Miami 11, New York 6.
5 points.
If you took the Jets plus 3.5, the dreaded lateral play got you host.
You got host. You got
got
host.
host.
But anytime you got Flacco, you're going to get host.
Ooh, that was a good point there, Big Richard.
You got hosed.
Well, that's it for the show. I'd like to thank the historic YNOT Saloon in Carson City, Nevada.
Yay, thank you.
I'd also like to thank Big Richard Martin, Gator Gates, all our contributors, our editor, producer, and engineer, Cornelius, and all you listeners out there, and all you listeners right here. And next week, we look forward to bringing you another episode of Covering the Field.
All right, good.
Yay!
All right, Monica, you can play your music now. Thanks for it. I can have my drink.
You've been listening to Covering the Field. Email us at coveringthefield@gmail.com for all your comments or questions. Find us on Twitter @CoveringField. And of course, always check out the website for our picks of the week and updated articles. coveringthefield.com.